If you're a Christian and traditional man and you feel like the dating scene is hopeless for you, well, this is the video for you. You're going to want to tune into this information because what I'm going to give you here is going to be the way you solve this problem, this issue of the dating problem as a Christian, traditional, conservative man. You know, in today's world in the West, let's just say the United States, for example, let's say that's where you're at. The dating scene has become very, very competitive for conservative, traditional Christian men who just wish to have traditional relationships and wives and girlfriends who share in those values and share in that way of life, who, you know, want to be mothers, want to take care of the home, want to take care of their man, you know, to an extent. And, you know, this is what guys are searching for, because they understand that this is sort of the traditional way of things, but they've come to realize that they've been sold a lie that, oh, you can just go to your local church and you'll find tons of available Christian women who share your perspective. A lot of men are finding out that this is not the case at all, that no matter what they do, even if they go to the right churches, even if they go to the right community activities and events, a lot of these men are finding that these women are in low supply. The ones that are available or did exist have been taken to some degree. And whatever's left is a very, very high competitive market because there's very few of these women. They're highly desired. And so the top men are going to end up landing these women in most cases. So what does the average traditional Christian guy do? What is your options in this world? And how do you get a satisfying relationship and marriage and family if that's something that you desire without compromising on your beliefs? Obviously there's some wiggle room here, but you know, more and more men are realizing that modernity is a cancer, that modern feminism, modern ideas of relationships are just like this 50-50 thing, and both of you should work, and you know, really that's what a relationship is. Many men are realizing, no, that's what has created the awful modern world and existence that we have now. We need to return to a traditional form, traditional nuclear family, if we want to restore something of a normal societal resemblance. But what if all the women that you're searching for have been radicalized by some degree or another by this way of thinking? I'm not saying all Christian women in America have been radicalized in this way. There are some who are not and actually desire traditional relationships. But a lot of the Christian girls, unfortunately, even in your churches, even in your quote-unquote conservative churches, share a lot of these feminist mindsets, whether they know it or not. They're not going to be very traditional in a lot of ways. Maybe they're, you know, very genuine in their faith, and maybe they do want kids, and they do want a family, but when it comes to other aspects of a traditional marriage or relationship, they don't share the same attitudes. They feel like, well, I should be able to work, and like me giving up working is like this massive sacrifice, and so the man owes me, and he also needs to do like 50% of the housework and all this stuff, and so they're not going to view things the same way because they've been highly radicalized and bombarded with propaganda since they come out of the womb. It's not really their fault. This is the fault of the system, the fault of the media system, and the propaganda system. But a lot of people are like, well, we need to fix that system. And I agree with them, but that doesn't give men solutions now. That doesn't give men any sort of way out. You know, if you're a man in your 20s and 30s and you're looking to marry, well, upending an entire system that took 100 years to build, that's going to take a long time. So it's not a solution to tell men, we'll just wait till you know, we upend the system and then everything will be fine. That's not a solution now. So what do men do now who are stuck in this position? Well, you can continue doing the same thing you've always done, hoping that it works, hoping that you get lucky, swiping on the apps, hoping to maybe find a girl that fits your values. Continue to search the churches, which, look, if you haven't dated in the US at all, I suggest giving it a try. Maybe you'll find something that works for you. But for a lot of you, you're realizing that these efforts are pretty fruitless. You're not getting what you want out of the situation, and you need to change up your approach. So how do you change up your approach? How do you make a big change? You know, if you keep beating your head against the wall, doing the same thing, you know, that's the definition of insanity. And if nothing changes, nothing changes. So what do you do to change your odds? Well, when it comes to dating and relationships, the easiest way to do that is to actually leave your location. For a lot of you men, it's a problem of location and geography. Now, you can do that within your own country. If you're in an area where women are not really matching your values, you can move to a different part of the country where the odds are better. That would be the first sort of maybe way to go about things there. Go to the rural areas, go to the more conservative areas. That's not a bad plan. But what I think is actually going to be more fruitful is actually leaving the country itself, going to a different country where more of these traditional women are more abundant. Your value as a man, because of who you are from the West and the ability to earn the dollar, is a higher stock. You're going to be more desired than the men in that country. And you're just going to offer something different than what the women are used to. Contrary to popular belief, Western men in America actually treat, I think, women very, very well if you compare to the rest of the world, because we live in a highly feminized society. Men are used to walking on eggshells around women and actually treat them very, very well. In my experience, a lot of these women from other countries, developing countries, or countries where, men go overseas to find wives, are very grateful a lot of times to actually date these men. So where does that leave you? What are your options? Well, I think there's three main options when you look at dating for men and where they can go outside the country for Christian men, Christian and Catholic men, I think specifically. And an obvious option that pops up is Latin America. There's plenty of traditional women in Latin America. I've seen it for myself, and I've known them, and I've met them. And there's a lot of guys with successful relationships there. So, countries such as Colombia, Brazil, Argentina are very popular ones there. Mexico's another one. The biggest downside of Latin America is the safety concerns. If you're smart about it, I've been to Colombia, you'll usually be okay, but there's always that sort of lingering in the back of your mind. But if that interests you, that's not a bad location to think about, and maybe just take an exploratory trip to see if that's a place you'd like to spend some time of your life, doing certain things and exploring, and if the culture resonates with you. Another location that men bring up a lot is going to be Southeast Asia. So this is going to be Thailand. These countries don't have very high Christian populations, but a country that does is the Philippines. And another country that no one talks about, that I think is actually maybe one of the best options for men, is the country of South Korea. That's the country where I currently live, and I've actually met my girlfriend here, my Christian girlfriend. She's very traditional, and we really have a good relationship, and she just treats me better than any other girl I've experienced in the West. But this is not a country people talk about when they talk about dating abroad, passport movement stuff. South Korea has a disproportionate amount of Christian people in their country compared to most of the other East Asian countries like Japan, China, for example. There are a few cults here and stuff like that, but it's relatively somewhat of a Christian culture here, which is very good for Asia. So the Philippines, South Korea for Christian men may not be a bad option for you. And one of the upsides of dating in a place like East Asia is a very safe society. It's very easy to get around. It's very foreigner friendly, I would say, to a degree. If you learn some of the language and learn some of the culture here, it's very, very safe. Nothing bad is going to happen to you. South Korea is safer than the United States, for example. So it's a very safe area. They do value, white people quite a bit here. White men tend to do pretty well in Asia when it comes to dating. And, based on recent financial markets, the dollar is doing quite well in a place like South Korea, the Philippines, and your dollar also performs really well in Latin America. So, if Asia's always interested you, if maybe Asian women have always interested you, maybe consider a region like that. The third region would be Eastern Europe, is another one people talk about a lot. So we're talking about Eastern Bloc, Romania, Bulgaria, Poland. I know it's maybe considered Central Europe, but these old Soviet occupied areas, right, is what people are talking about, where these areas are much more traditional. That is another one you can consider. These areas are fairly safe, except for Ukraine, because obviously they're in a conflict right now. But, these places are safer than Latin America. You're going to have a lot of cultural similarities from the U.S. to Eastern Europe than a place like South Korea is very different than the U.S. in a lot of ways, and Latin America has a lot of differences. But because there's sort of an ethnic similarity between Eastern Europe and the United States, you may fit in there well. So to solve this dating issue, if you feel like that what I'm saying resonates with you, the experience resonates with you, your first step is to find a way to explore one of these regions of the country. Do it for, the cultural similarities, and find a place you're actually genuine in exploring, and don't just do it purely for finding a woman or finding a wife. Okay, it's never going to work out that way if you do that. I came to South Korea for my job, and I happened to also do some dating and find a good girl, but that wasn't the only reason I did it, and it shouldn't be the only reason you do it either. So find a place that you really enjoy, would be fun to explore, a place you could geo arbitrage to with maybe making remote dollars, and then plan a week-long trip where you explore that area and see if it's a place that you can settle down and maybe be in for a while if you're really serious about this. So that's kind of step one. I'm outlining the options, the possible routes you can take if you feel that you're not having a lot of luck in the West and you've realized that, hey, I'm actually a good guy, I actually have traditional values, I actually do want to provide, but this is just not working for me. I'm telling you, there's other options. There's other ways you can explore, and there's other things you can do. So if you're interested in that and you're interested in how you could go about that, maybe you can leave a comment down below and we can continue the discussion there. I'm going to continue to make videos about this life path for Christian men that no one is talking about. So thank you so much for watching this video, and anyways, I'll see you guys next time.